Hey guys, Frank here from Tidely with another episode of Modern Church Leader. Excited about talking about parents and families and kids today. As you guys know, I'm a dad of 3 triplet boys, and I'm joined by my new friend, Sarah Cowan Johnson.
Hi.
Good to have you on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Why don't you, we have lots of folks on the show, and I always love learning about your journey into ministry and kind of how you got to today. So why don't you take us back and give us a little bit of the history?
Yeah, so I grew up in a Christian home. I'm actually a PK. My dad was a pastor. And my mom was in ministry as well. She did campus ministry, within her varsity. And I never thought I was going to go into ministry. In school, I studied international relations. I thought maybe I would go do development work in sub-Saharan Africa. That was kind of like the trajectory I was on. And then I don't even know. I went to Urbana. If you're familiar with the Urbana Missions Conference, in 2000, and felt a call to full-time ministry. And then, so I went into college ministry, went on staff with InterVarsity. And that's where I met my husband. We've been married 17 years. So I was on staff with InterVarsity for 13 years and then moved into the church world. I was the executive pastor at a Covenant church plant here in Providence, where I live, and did that for several years. And then right before the pandemic, I launched out on my own to do ministry coaching and consulting. And that's what I'm doing now. My biggest client is the Covenant denomination, and I've been doing church planter training for them and working on some discipleship resources and coaching pastors and all kinds of things. So been doing that for a couple of years and wrote a book. Right
in the midst of the pandemic, you decided that's a big step. I mean, I'm sure that's a scary step anyways,
right?
To jump out and do something on your own like that. For all kinds of reasons, but what was the thing that kind of made it happen? Like what got you to the decision to jump out?
Well, I had a lot going on personally. So my mother-in-law passed away, and then my mother passed away within 18 months of each other. And so that was, we just had a lot going on, family-wise. And so being in a local church, loved being executive pastor in a church plant because it's just fast paced and, but there's a lot of weight, to serving in a local church. And I just was feeling like, I think I love equipping. I love, creating tools. I love coaching. And I think for a season, I need to step into a space where I'm doing that. And so, it was talking to our director of church planting for the denomination about training. And he said, well, what if we talk about a 6-month contract? And it was like a light bulb went on in my head. And I was like, oh, maybe I don't want a job. Maybe I want to start my own thing and look for contracts. And that's what I've been doing. And I love it. Yeah. So sort of working on the church rather than in the church, if that makes sense. So,
yeah, absolutely. And do you find you spend most of your time with church plants, or like what's the
kind of a
primary
mix. So that's like the little pocket of the church that I kind of hang out in. Like I serve on the church planting team for our denomination in Canada. So I consult with them. So I do a lot with church planting in Canada. So that's kind of like, that's where my heart beats a little bit, is for church planting. But I also did a lot of coaching through the pandemic for other departments in the denomination. So I was coaching, rural pastors who have been in established churches in towns of like 400, like, oh my gosh, so different. I coached a pastor at a church here in New England that just celebrated its, 130th birthday, so wide range, but church planting is kind of those are my people. So.
Yeah. I love that. And in the midst of all that, or somewhere in that journey, you also wrote a book.
Yes.
Which sounds amazing. That has to do with parenting and parents being successful raising their kids in the faith. So what inspired that? Like, tell us the title of the book and those kind of things. But I'd love to know what inspired you to write that.
Yeah, yeah. So the book is called Teach Your Children Well, a step-by-step guide for family discipleship. It's published by IVP, InterVarsity Press. And yeah, it's for parents and also for pastors and ministry leaders. So for parents, it's a guide to help equip them in discipling their kids in the home, and for pastors and ministry leaders, sort of how do we partner well with parents in our churches. So what led to that was when I was serving as executive pastor, we didn't have a kids person on staff, and I was trying to fill the position and trying to hire and wrote this job description, and the position was just open and it just kept being open and we could not fill it. So I decided, what if I lean in for a year and work with the lay leaders, like develop a team and kind of interim direct this ministry for a year, and then we'll try again in a year to hire. And I really at that point had no background in children's ministry at all. No, to be honest, no huge amount of interest. Yeah. I had little kids, but I think as a woman pastor, I'm always a little sensitive about, I'm not the kids pastor, right? So I was a little hesitant. But the minute I started working with this team about what do we want to teach our kids and how, I was hooked. And so the thing that led to the book was coming across a couple of statistics. So one, you probably know, and probably a lot of your listeners know, the big, bad, horrible statistic that half of our kids or more walk away from the faith after they graduate. But then reading more and doing research, realizing that actually there's something that makes a really big difference in that statistic. And it's nothing related to better church programming or more staff. It's parents. And so parents who talk about and practice their faith in the home, 82% of those kids go on to follow Jesus as adults. And so for me as a pastor trying to work with this kids team, I'm like, we could put all of our energy into Sunday morning,
right?
Or we could put at least half of our energy into equipping parents.
Right.
So that's what we started doing. And then that led to eventually, a few years down the road, led to the book.
Yeah. I love that. How did you, and I mean, I guess you have your own experience and maybe what you've also helped other churches kind of think about or start doing. So I'd love to break it into two parts. There's the helping the church think this way and do things to equip parents. And then there's the parents, right? And kind of helping them what they got equipped to do and those kind of things. So like, talk to me about the pastoral side, like the church side of it. Like what kind of things did you guys start doing to like get the thinking around equipping parents to help their kids and not like the parents thinking the church is what's going to help their kids kind of thing.
Exactly. Right. So we're sort of working against this idea that, I drop my kids off and you all disciple them, which is what we do with everything else as parents where we want our kids to grow, right? We kind of delegate that to the professionals. And the way that the Western church is kind of set up that really prioritizes the paid positions and the pastoral role in the area of discipleship, that doesn't really help. But so what we started doing, first of all, we changed our vision statement for our children and family ministry to reflect that. So, we had something about, I don't even remember the previous vision statement, but something about, helping kids love Jesus. I don't remember, but we changed it to be that every child in our ministry would encounter Jesus on a Sunday morning, and that everything we would do on a Sunday morning would also serve to equip and empower parents to take the lead at home. So that was just became like stated up front that this is a value. And then we kind of built programming around that. So I developed a seminar that we started doing as kind of a one-off, event that we would do a couple times a year for parents to share, the vision, share those statistics, and give them very practical tools for how to do this, how to talk about and practice your faith at home in simple, not going to take tons of time, not going to require a seminary degree. Like, how do you do this in the midst of soccer practice and dinner time and all that? So that seminar, I did a couple times a year. And then from there, that kind of turned into a cohort experience. So like a 6-week class that we run for parents now regularly at our church. And so I've done that at a number of other churches. But yeah, it's really just inviting parents to be the thinking of parents as leaders. So that was kind of what really felt powerful to me as someone who loves leadership development, was every parent is a leader, a kingdom leader of their own little ecosystem. And how do we help them see that? And then how do we help them how do we equip them?
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. What'd you do in the 6-week course? What kind of things did you cover?
Yeah.
It sounds like the church still does it. So what?
Yeah, we do. And I actually put it online and churches can take the course. So yeah, it's a lot of the stuff that's in the book, but we start out talking about sort of our priorities as parents, right? How do we move spiritual development of our children up on the list of all the other great priorities we have for them? And then we talk about, 2 different types of discipleship. One, which is what people normally think of, which is what I call proactive. And that's like, you make a plan, you think about like, I'm going to disciple my kids at bedtime by doing this spiritual practice. But the other one is responsive discipleship, which is looking for ways that God is already at work in your child's life. And how do you respond to these God moments in their life?
Right.
And so do a little bit on God moments, there's a week on that. And then there's a couple weeks on proactive discipleship and thinking about your child's age and stage and how their spiritual development relates to discipleship. And then there's a week at the end about habit formation and where do we go from here? So,
Right. I love that. So I have 3 10-year-old boys.
Yes, you do.
What do I do?
Amazing.
What do I do with 10-year-old boys?
Oh man. Okay. So 10-year-old boys are so this is a model of spiritual development called, from John Westerhoff. I actually really love this model. So he talks about 3 stages in, between birth to 18. So the first stage is experiential. Those are little kids like up through about school age, where the primary way they engage with faith is by doing the actions of faith. But your boys are in the affiliative stage, which is when they begin to really associate with the group. And you probably have noticed that, like even in how they think about their friends now. Mm-hmm. And so the primary way that kids in the affiliative stage interact spiritually is with a group mentality. So it's, I believe because we believe. So because my people believe in Jesus, I believe in Jesus. So, right. So my family, that's, their peers. This is when we often like help them get connected to youth group later, middle school, stuff like that. And so, yeah, for those kids, it's really helping them to participate in the church as their own person.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, practices that I love with that age group are things like teaching them how to keep a prayer journal, teaching them how to sort of listen for God's voice, but yeah, that age is a fun age. We started, you might appreciate this. During COVID, my oldest son was 10 at the beginning of the pandemic, and there were 7 10-year-old boys that were orbiting our church.
Yeah.
And we pulled them together in a weekly Zoom Bible study that we called the Preteen Boy Squad. And they did Bible study, like inductive Bible study on Zoom. And they're still meeting. So now they're almost all 13, but
cool.
Yeah, they're still meeting. So that sense of like tribe, I think is really important for that age.
Right. And they did it on Zoom. That's actually, they stayed. And I mean, I guess, my kids do interact with friends online quite often in various ways. So I guess that makes
we sort of, I wouldn't call it bribe, but we did a half an hour of content, and then with parents' permission, a half an hour of unsupervised, you guys can hang out on Zoom together and share stupid memes and whatever 10-year-old boys.
That's what they do. That's basically all they do. Just
I know.
Dumb memes and like play Minecraft and Roblox and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So they got, half an hour of time with their friends that they couldn't see in person. And so, yeah, they're still doing it. And they also do things in person now. But we've actually kept the Zoom thing going because they live in, different places and everybody has soccer practice or whatever. So we've just done it on Zoom.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Have you helped other churches like do some of these things? It sounds like the seminars and then the 6-week workshop are kind of the pillars of like the programming, if you will, at the church that's focused on helping parents think about all these things to do at home. Like how have other churches like adapted to it or thought about it?
Yeah. So I have done some consulting for individual churches where I'll meet with their pastor or their children's ministry team. I think it's helpful when the lead pastor is connected and involved. But so one of the ones that was really amazing was a church in the Boston area that I worked with for a season, helping them to think about a pathway for kids from birth to 18. So a lot of times churches think about what's our discipleship pathway for kids, but we did that plus what do we want parents to experience through that same birth to 18? How are we going to equip and resource parents? So I would go and meet with them. We did it, every other time was on Zoom and in person, and help them like come up with, vision statement, plan. And that was super fun. So I actually one time right at the beginning when I was just starting to think about all this stuff, the book didn't exist yet. I like randomly was like, you know what? I wonder if anybody would come to a Zoom seminar if I just did a seminar for church leaders on how to partner with parents. And like, this isn't going to cost me anything. Like, I'll just toss it out there. And if I get, 5 people, I'll be happy. And I had like 65 pastors sign up for this thing. And I was like, oh, I guess this is a need, So that was really fun. And that was, how do you use your calendar, through a calendar year to think about opportunities for empowering and equipping parents.
Is there any other, I'm just trying to pull out like ideas for people listening. Like, are there other things that you've done or seen churches do that really helps equip parents to do these things at home?
Yeah. So another thing that we're doing at our church that I've also started sharing with other churches is, so a lot of churches think about like a family Sunday once a month. Some churches, especially smaller churches, might have a week a month that they don't offer kids programming, things like that. Our church has a family Sunday that is, we just highlight our children and family ministry. We still offer kids programming, but what we've started doing is we have a family discipleship practice of the month. And that's something that I actually send out to subscribers to my newsletters, like a practice of the month. So we've done a God hunt, which is like a version of the examen for kids. Like, where did you notice God this week? We've done prayer walking. We've done a really fun thing that actually my mom created when I was a kid called a prayer tree that helps you like visualize answered prayer. So things like that are, creative for kids. So on Family Sunday, we have a kids moment in the service that is really a parent's moment in disguise. So we take 2 or 3 minutes and describe the practice for parents.
Okay.
So tell them about the practice. And then we invite the kids up and model the practice. And then we send home a sheet that basically is like how to do this at home. And so then the challenge is to do this for the month.
Yeah, do it at home,
Yeah, so we feel like that does a number of things. It sort of highlights our children and family ministry, gives us a chance to say that vision every month and talk about why we empower parents, because even that statistic, we talk about that. So it's like said from the front once a month. Then we give parents a really simple tool. We model it for them, and then we give them like instructions. So that has been awesome.
Yeah.
And again, that was another thing I sort of put out online, like, would anybody be interested in this? And it was like sharks, like, yes. So I think I'm just sort of learning like, oh, there's a real hunger, I think, out there in churches for how to equip parents well.
Yeah, no, I think there is. I think churches, and this is a massive generality, so it's not true of everyone, but they think a lot about kids and kids programs at church.
Yep.
It's a big focus. It's oftentimes, when you're planting a church or growing a church, like think about kids, make it awesome because it brings the parents. But it's because the parents are craving their kids being helped.
Right.
Right. And you're meeting that need in a particular way.
Yep.
But then the need is still real. Like they still want their kids to be helped, and maybe they don't feel equipped to do it or know how to do it, or it's scary, or they're afraid, or, they've never seen it themselves because they didn't grow up that way. And so there's all these things. And if you start helping parents, like every Christian parent going to church, like wants to help their kids, like, I think that's just true. And they may not all know how to, and you need somebody.
Like, I think a lot of times, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to sort of finish it with like, what's helped me the most is having other like families and like strong men that were leading their families and doing stuff. Like I've been able to see it in action.
Yes.
But that sometimes that doesn't exist, or you don't know the people or whatever. Right. So churches like can be big and scary too. So like finding ways to equip parents is like awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times, so I think the barriers to parents doing, and again, it's a really simple behavior. It's not parents who are like teaching Sunday school classes in their homes. It's just talking about and practicing their faith at home. And I think the barriers, I think number one is, a lot of times parents feel like I wouldn't even know where to start. Like what do I do? So part of what I'm trying to do is give them simple tools that are like easy, things you can just replicate. I think another barrier is parents feel like they have no time, which you probably feel that way. I feel that way,
life is busy.
Yes, life is very busy. And so another thing that I try to encourage parents around is you don't actually need to add a ton of time to your life to do this well. If you look at Deuteronomy 6, which is like, talk about my law, with your children as you walk along the road and as you lie down and as you get up and as you go to bed. It's like the same strategy that God used with Israel, I think applies today, which is, we can weave discipleship into our normal everyday rhythms. And so I think that when parents, kind of get the vision for like, oh, I'm not like carving out an hour. I'm actually looking for 3 to 5 minutes in the car, or like 10 minutes at dinner to have a conversation, or, that kind of changes it and makes it doable.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think maybe if you boil it all down, it's like your relationship with God has to kind of be real, and your kids have to see it.
That's right.
Like just day to day, whatever that looks like, and maybe sometimes it has to be more intentional, because maybe, some people keep it personal, or, it's like something about it is kept close to them. So they got to like express it. Like it's got to come out to their family in a way.
That's right.
So you got to be intentional about it. I forget who said this, but I remember doing another podcast and they had done a bunch of research on kids and everything. And they brought up just purely like having dinner together, like sitting at the table, having dinner, and taking the 10 minutes, right. To talk about, and it doesn't, I feel like it was like 3 or 4 days a week. It doesn't have to be like every single day, 7 days a week, though. That's probably the best in the world. But even if you do it a few times a week, sitting down, having a meal with dinner, no tech, having a little conversation.
Oh, get those phones out of that space. Yeah, I think that was like back in the day, I think that was a focus on the family, like, strategy. But I mean, research, sort of even secular research, shows that the family dinner table is so powerful, right? It's correlated with better grades. It's correlated with like lower rates of drug abuse and teen pregnancy and higher vocabulary. It's like all the things you want for your kids is somehow correlated to family dinner. And so, that's in our house. So we have boys who are 8 and 12. That for us right now is the best discipleship lab time that we have. So when they were smaller, dinner time is a little bit chaotic. And when they're older, I don't know if that will be interrupted. We're really pushing against the like get your kids into every activity that you can thing. So I hope that doesn't really change, but I know that, it may. But right now, that dinner time is so good for our family. Yeah.
One last question and then a few rapid fire ones. Have you ever seen a church sort of marry the parent teaching and the kids teaching so that the parents and the kids can talk about what they're learning together more like on Sunday, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. There's a ministry called D6 that I have connected with. So it's based on Deuteronomy 6, and they have a whole curriculum that kind of does that basically lines up the adult and the child teaching so that, yes, because I think that that's an incredible way to, bring that to the dinner table is to align it. So at our church, there's a couple times, so we're using an external curriculum. So they have their own sort of scope and sequence, but there's been a couple times where when we're working through something really specific for our church, like around the vision or, definitely Advent, things like that, where yes, we're aligning the kids program and the adults program. Yeah.
Now there's a pastor out of a live church that his name's Jeff Love. Like he actually has been working on the same thing, and he had this idea like years ago. He's like, he just felt this like, man, a lot of kids leave the church.
Yep.
And then he was like, but the key to that is parents. And so he goes, what can I do to help parents? And he's like, maybe one of the easiest things is I can make sure they can talk to their kids about spiritual things.
Awesome. Yep.
And if what the kids are learning in, Sunday school or kids ministry is also what the parents are learning in like the regular church service.
Exactly.
Then they can talk in the car on the way home. It's not like, hey, Johnny, what'd you learn today in class? Like, what they talked about in class to an extent, right? Yeah. And then you have dinner and you can talk about the same thing. So I just thought that was such a cool idea to help parents, like kind of in a really easy way, like not even doing anything else other than like being on the same page with what you guys are learning, being able to talk to your kids.
It's really smart. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. All right. This has been great. I got 3 quick questions to kind of end it with. First one is, who is someone that you've been most influenced by that just had a big impact on your life that people should know about?
Wow. Well, so, oh man, I mean, I have shared this a lot lately. But my mom had a huge impact on my life, and my mom passed away while I was writing this book. And so a lot of kind of like everything I learned about family discipleship, I learned from my mom.
Yeah.
And so, my mom, oh man. Charles Wesley has this quote about, everything I learned about Christianity. I learned more from my mother than from all the theologians in England. And I'm like, that's how I feel about my mom. She modeled all the family discipleship stuff for me. But also, so she was diagnosed with this horrible neurological disease. And it lasted, 4 years until she died, but she lost her ability to walk, her ability to move, her ability to talk, all of it. Mm. And in the end, she was communicating with her eyes with a device. And the way that she graciously and humbly just suffered. And, it was like Jesus just was amplified in the way that she went through that.
Yeah.
So,
oh, that's beautiful. Come on, Mom. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Second one. What's a book that everyone should read? You can throw your book in, but give me another one too.
No, I won't. A book that everyone should read. So just on this topic, so there's a lot of other books that I would throw out there. But if you have children, I love Jared Boyd's Imaginative Prayer. It's a fantastic resource. I haven't seen anything quite like it before. But Jared Patrick Boyd. It's 52-week kind of not program, but a 52-week experience where he takes kids through like a creedal poem of 52 truths about God that he does with these really creative, imaginative prayer experiences. And it is phenomenal.
That's cool. I love that. Yeah. Okay. Last one. What's a podcast you're listening to right now?
Oh, well, it's so This Cultural Moment, John Mark Comer and Mark Sayers. So their first couple seasons literally changed kind of like how I'm thinking about the church. And so I recommend that podcast.
Love it. This Cultural Moment.
This Cultural Moment, John Mark Comer and Mark Sayers, is absolutely brilliant. And if you have been in church ministry or in the church for more than 20 years, it will explain the shift that you've experienced.
Yeah.
It was like, for me, it was like, oh my gosh, this explains so much of what I've experienced.
Right. You're like, you're describing my feelings. This is amazing.
Yes. No, it's really, really excellent. So
that's awesome. Well, Sarah, this has been so fun. Is there a website or social media that people should go to check you out?
Yeah. SarahCowanJohnson.com. I'm on, Instagram and Facebook, but I'm not I don't have a huge social media, presence. But yeah, my website has all kinds of free resources and things for parents and for churches. So.
Love it. I love it. Well, this has been awesome. Thanks for doing the work you're doing and helping parents.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Glad you're listening. Tune in next week for another episode of Modern Church Leader. Bye-bye.